In this guide, I'll show you how to put a skeleton into our character. So wherever the skeleton moves, the character will deform with it. So I'm going to go to one of my side views. So I'm just tapping the space bar. You can click on this icon here also to bring up your 4 views. And I'm going to go to my side camera here so I can see my character. I'm just going to press the 5 key so I can see just the materials on that character. I'm also going to click on this little thing here, wireframe unshaded, so I can see the wireframe on my character. The last thing I'll do is I'm going to turn him into X-ray so I can see my joints. There's a couple of icons here. This one will show joints through a material, and this one will actually X-ray your character so you can just see through as well. So I'm going to turn those both on to help me see what I'm doing. I'm then going to go into rigging mode, which means it brings up some custom menus here. It brings up the skeleton menu, which has create joints in. These also live in the rigging shelf. So look, this icon here is your joint tool. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to start about here at the feet. I'm going to hold the shift key down so I can just draw it in a dead straight line. So I click on here. I'm going to click here, here, up into the neck, and about that. And then when I finish, I'm just going to press enter. So you can see I've just created this row of joints like so. Just going to tap the space bar and go to this view. I'm going to do the same in this view. I'm going to turn on my shaded view, and you'll see what this icon does now. If I click on this icon, you can see the joints appear through my model. They're a little bit large at the moment. That's just the display. It's just the scale of my character. So if I go to display, animation, and joint size, I can just turn these down a bit so they're just not so large on the screen. If yours appear absolutely fine, it might be just the scale of your model is a little bit different to mine. So these joints are fine. This has created a hierarchy of joints. So this is the topmost joint, even though it's at the bottom on his character. This is the topmost joint. So wherever I move this joint about, just using the rotate tool, you can see the other joints move with it. And likewise, I can pick each joint in the chain like so. And you can just select them anywhere you like. And there's the topmost joint. This little one here is the topmost joint. So we'll probably assign that to his hat. So we've got a neck joint and so on. Next thing we'll do, we'll create some arm joints. So I'm going to go to my top view for that. Again, I'm pressing the 5 key so I can see stuff. I will turn on the wireframe. I like to see where the edge loops are that I need to put the joints in, where they're going to sort of deform the mesh. And again, I'm going to put them into X-ray mode so I can just see, look, I can see his shoulder then through the hat. I'm going to create a new bone chain. I'm going to start here. I'm not going to hold the shift key down. I'm just going to draw these in sort of free draw mode, and just like that. You can see I've put a slight curve and press enter at the end. Now this will draw them flat to the plane, so these will be on the floor. So there they are. If I want to move these, I want to pick the topmost chain. If I pick one of them below the chain, you'll see it will just move those ones below there. So I pick the topmost one, and I'm just dragging those up so they're inside the arm. Press the F key to frame selection. Have a look around. That's good. Now what we want to do is we want to link the arm to the spine. So we want to link it to the chest joint, this joint here. So wherever his chest goes, the arm will go with it. We don't want it linked to the neck, because if he shakes his head, he'll wave his arm. So we don't want that happening. So we pick this joint here. I'll just press Q to get rid of the rotate tool. I'll hold shift down and select the chest joint, and I'll press the P key. And that has linked that to that. So if we move this about, the arm will move with it now, and so on. We'll mirror this joint across. So if we have a look up here in the skeleton tool, there's something called mirror joints. There it is. And I'll just turn on the options for that. And we want to mirror these across the YZ plane. So I'll set that to YZ. I'm going to leave the rest alone. I pick the top of the hierarchy of the arm joint, this one here, not this here, because you end up duplicating everything below there. So you end up with 2 head joints in his head. So that one there. Pressing the Q key just to get rid of the rotate, and just click on apply. You can see that's duplicated that across like that. Okay, so that's our joints all in the right place. So we can move those about, we can rotate them, and so on. And I'll just show you another view so you can understand this hierarchy. In Windows, there's something called the hypergraph hierarchy. If we load this up, the same navigation keys work in this, so you can just press A to frame everything. And this will just show you everything that's in your scene. So at the moment I've got P cube 1, which is the character's body, and P cube 3, which is the hat. I should name these. I can name these over here. So I could call this body like so, and I could call this hat. So it just helps me to understand what's what in my scene. Then I've got joint 1, which is this bottom joint here, so I could call that the root joint, so root. And then I've got this joint, I could call that waist. If I can spell it right, there we go. And so on. So you can name all of these, so you might call this L shoulder, left elbow, left hand, and so on. Just be aware there's these little end joints here that you don't really need. I always draw them in because it draws this little triangle joint in, which makes it easier to select the joint. You can just click on this and it's picking this joint here, and you can see where the pivot is of that joint, like so. Okay, so this is your hierarchy, and you can parent things together using the P key, or you can unparent things using Shift P. So if I wanted to unparent this arm chain here, look, there's the joint chain in the arm, which is parented under this joint here, which is the chest. I will just quickly name that. If I wanted to unparent that, I just pick that joint 7, I can press Shift P, and you can see that separates it away, and that link has been deleted there. Likewise, if you know what you're doing in this hypergraph view, you can middle drag things together. So if I middle drag joint 7 onto the chest, it links it together. If I middle drag it away, it unlinks it. You can parent anything together. You can parent cubes to circles and so on and so forth. And basically, the top of the hierarchy will move the lower parts of the hierarchy around. So you can sort of link up things together and make things work quite nicely. But this is very important to understand how these hierarchies work, and I'll explain that more in class. So I'm going to link that to that. So these will now follow. You've got like the neck, the head, and the hat joint, but also below the chest you've got the arms, left and right arms. So it's worth taking the time to name these. Right, I'm going to shut that window down. And what we want to do now is we want to skin our character. Sounds a bit gruesome, but it means that what it will do, it will assign all these vertices to the close joints. And this will make it so we can move the joints around and he will deform. So I'm going to pick the topmost joint in our hierarchy. So that's the one that's right at the top of our hierarchy, the root joint. I'm then going to hold Shift down and select the body. Okay, so I've got both things selected. I'm then going to go Skin, Bind Skin, and Options. And in here, I just want to check a few options. Joint hierarchy. This means it will go down all the joints and assign the closest vertices to those joints. You can do just selected joints, so I could just assign certain bits to be skin weighted, but we'll do it as joint hierarchy. Maximum influences is the number of bones that can influence an individual vertex. So if you have it set to 5, it means 5 bones that are near to a vertex could deform it. We're going to set this down to say, let's say 3. And the drop-off rate is the range. I always turn this up to 10. It means that the drop-off is higher. That means that the range is less. It kind of play about with it. It will make sense. I find 10 gets good results. And then I'll just go apply. Close that window down. And you can see the joints have gone coloured. And it means that they are assigned to vertices. And we can see now, look, we can move them about. He's leaving his hat around. We haven't skinned his hat to anything at the moment. So we can actually start to animate him now. Look, we can move him along with the root joint. The lower joints I tend to just rotate. You can move them, but you'll see it will stretch his mesh. So you can do some nice sort of little bits of squash and stretch with them for sort of cartoony animation, but you have to be careful. He is a low poly mesh, so he will do horrible things because he hasn't got lots of subdivisions in, but he is deforming. If I turn on the wireframe, he's deforming around his edges and stuff like that. Let's have a look at how the arms work. They're not too bad. It's pulling his shoulder about a little bit, but they're not too bad. Okay, and we can go up and down the hierarchy and just see how well they are all working. Let's have a look at his head. Not bad. You can see this is some of the issues that happen with skin weights. You can see these vertices here, these sort of around his chin, are obviously weighted to this neck joint. So they all move together with that, which is fine, but I will want to eventually assign those chin vertices to the head joint, like that. And likewise, we want to get the hat working. So I'll show you just quickly how we can add the hat to it. I'm just going to do this joint here. I'm going to select that joint there, and I'm going to select the hat by shift selecting. I'm going to go to Skin, Bind Skin, and this time I'm just going to do selected joints and just go apply. And I know there's going to be a little bit of a problem, but if we now move this joint about, if I just rotate it, look, the hat's moving. But you can also see this joint, because we skinned it through joint hierarchy before, this joint has got control over some of the vertices in this head. If I move the hat off, like But you can see it stretching these verts here. So some of these vertices have obviously got some kind of relationship with this joint here, which I want to get rid of. So I'm going to select that joint. I'm going to shift select the body because that's got the vertices that I want to remove the selection from. And I'm going to go to skin and edit influences and remove influence. And what that means is that that bone has got no influence over this mesh now. And if I move that about now, you can see it's only got influence over that hat. So that joint is controlling that hat. You could just control the hat as an individual object if you wanted to, but it's better to control it with bones. It kind of works a bit better. You'll also see that if I pick the hat now, the manipulator tool is grayed out. It's locked. And if you have a look over in your channel box, these all turn to gray. It means that you can't control this object anymore. The joints have got control over it. Okay. And another important thing is that this is where you want to keep history. If I select the hat now, you can look at the history and it's got something called a tweak and a skin cluster. And you need to keep that history. If I delete that history, I will lose my skin weights. So I need to keep that history. So as I move that about, if I delete the history of this object like so, and I move that joint about, suddenly there's no relationship between that hat and that joint, and it's unlocked this all again. Okay, so that is the basics of getting, drawing a skeleton and assigning skin weights.